So we're getting ready for our next conversation, not a panel, a conversation. We're getting there, near the end of the day. Some have already started with happy hour, but I'm very excited to introduce the conversation with two OGs. It's called Beyond the Memecoin Casino, Can Crypto Still Save the World? And so we've got James Fry from Risk Labs and Dani Osorio from Metaweb Ventures.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so we're here today to talk about a very polemic issue, which is where in the world are we? What happened? And how did we end up here? So Igor and I actually know each other from our days at Consensus way back when, I think it was 2017, and Joe Lubin would approach you and say, do you want to change the world? That was the invitation. And I said, yeah, this is cool. Ethereum's going to change the world. And we really believed it. We went around and we went to all these market launches. We talked to founders and politicians about the power of blockchain technology, about immutability, about censorship resistance, about what the world could look like. And one day we woke up in 2025, and this morning the SEC determined that meme coins were actually not securities, and you can totally do, I don't know what you can do in America, but like it was totally fine. And so I sit here with James to say like, what is going on?
Are we allowed to swear?
If you want to.
Because I might. How many of you in the crowd have ever purchased a meme coin? Yeah, lots of you. How many of you actively trade meme coins? Some of you, ish, short, yeah, okay. How many of you have made money on meme coins? How many of you lost money on meme coins? Yeah. I don't even know where to start because it's so toxic is the word. And I want to explain this. So this year, we kicked off the year. We have a new president in the US, and a meme coin followed very, very shortly after. How many of you think that was a net positive for crypto? For those who aren't in the audience, there's 0 hands raised. Not a single hand went up. How many of you lost money on Trump coin? Yeah. How many of you made money on Trump coin? Yeah? Okay. At what cost? Whose money was that you made money on? So here's the hot take. I think meme coins are antithetical to mass adoption because every time we have a mass adoption event like Trump coin, we onboard however many new users and they buy some Solana, they jump in, they open a wallet, they buy Trump coin, they're ready to make millions of dollars, and then you all use them as exit liquidity. And they never come back.
Do you think they never come back, or is it like they tried it and then they're going to try something else?
Maybe I'm a doom and gloom in that, but I wouldn't come back. If my first experience was Trump coin and I lost a bunch of money, I probably wouldn't come back. What's the point?
I think some people talk about it as like, what are the mechanisms of mass adoption? And like, you have to incentivize people with something, right? Like you have to give them something that they want. In the 2017 cycle, it was like ICOs, that was gambling.
For sure.
Right? The previous cycle was NFTs.
Gambling.
Current cycle.
Mostly gambling. So
like, is there still any hope? Is there going to be like a mass adoption vehicle that is not gambling? What could it look
yes.
like? What could it look like? Because you have to onboard people somehow, right? Like we can't just say like, oh, people have to onboard because the technology is so cool that you can't do anything with it. But try it out. There has to be like use cases, right? And right now, if you think about our use cases, like I heard some really cool ideas about. Maybe remittances. That's probably the only use case I've heard about that, like widely practiced, like refugees or like Argentina, stable coins, right? That's a real use case. That's a country that's onboarded. So that's cool. That's an alternative. Like, what about the rest of the world?
Argentina.
Things to say. What about the rest of the world?
I think there are two ways to look at this, and I think you and I probably both agree mostly on this, and maybe most of you too. Even if you've made some, I don't mean to shame you. It's okay. Trade meme coins, that's fine. If that's what you want, that's okay. But also do so with the knowledge that the negative impact is there. We can't ignore it. There is negative impact. And so when I think about like what could mass adoption look like that isn't just another crypto casino, maybe if we're sitting in this room and we've looked at the ICOs and then we looked at the NFT cycle and we looked at now we're this interesting meme cycle that maybe is starting to slow down a little bit and maybe not. Are those really mass adoption events? I don't think so. I don't know how much it benefits the world to see Jimmy Fallon wearing a Bored Ape. I don't know how much it benefits the world for the president of Argentina to launch a token and have that just rug.
But what about the idea of like value creation, right? And like builders who are building, and like how are they getting compensated for their work? How are they getting compensated for the value they're creating? Because one of the great challenges that you see is, I remember for the first project I worked for, a super OG project, and it was still the tail end of that ICO craze, and I said like, are we launching a token? And he said no. Good projects don't launch tokens. That was like 2017. I was like, oh, okay, right? And then you have all this value that supposedly gets created, and then you have people who maybe have never even worked in the industry who just launch something, they extract all the value, it moves through ERC20 tokens, they come through, and then you have these builders who spent 5 years toiling away building open source software who have $0, and you have some memesters who dropped in, 3 weeks ago who walked out with like $10 million. So like, is that fair, right? So does that, like, what can be done?
I'm curious, why did you join Web3? Like in the very, very beginning, you opened your first wallet. Why did you join?
So, because Joe Lubin hired me and I needed a wallet in MetaMask, number one. But the reason that I said yes to the invitation was because I come from South America, and we have very tricky governments there. Banana Republic is a generous way to refer to them. And I have an inherent distrust of governments, and I felt that adding transparency was really meaningful. And I actually had some conversations with Lamon, who had been previously the Prime Minister of Haiti, when he talked about this, where he said that when Haiti had experienced their crisis with the earthquake, they got some aid from the Red Cross, and they raised something like $80 million for them, and then they tried to give them a check for $5 million and said that everything else was spent in administration fees. And so he was exploring blockchain as a way to like actually get aid back to countries in the way that like it was intended. And I thought that was a really cool use case, and I said this would be so cool if we could add accountability to governments through this kind of transparent ledger. That was my like idea of like what the technology could do when I joined, but in practice, I opened a MetaMask to just do some pretty basic, NFT trading.
I think that reason is a very compelling reason. Mine is really similar. I was introduced to blockchain technology early on as a financial mechanism. Like, hey, you could make some money, and I started to really research and dig into it. And I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, a buddy of mine made some money, so I'm just gonna blindly throw some money at this thing. And so as I started to understand the ethos of what it means to build on the blockchain, it boils down to me for a lot of folks, it's the return of ownership to the masses. You don't own your home. Maybe you do, but most people rent. If you own a home, if you buy your home, you're paying a mortgage, probably for 30 years, maybe if you're aggressive for 15. Most people aren't even owning their vehicles. They're leasing or they're taking banknotes to be able to purchase them. Heck, even this iPhone that's in my pocket, I can pay monthly payments to buy an iPhone. Pretty soon, I'm not going to own the shoes on my feet, the socks on my feet, the underwear that I have on. Ownership is getting further and further away as a concept from the general mass of society. And that's not okay, because if you fast forward that in time, what does that look like? It means the top 0.001% own everything, and no one else has any chance to have any meaningful equity built up in their lives.
So do you think the true unlock of blockchain will be the attribution of ownership?
I think what it does is it gives the hope to dismantle the corrupt financial systems that have always existed. And it's similar to what you're saying. It's when you look at countries that deal with corrupt governments, crypto gives them a way to truly own their money. And that's something that's really powerful. I don't know that meme coins benefit that in any way.
But what if people just know that it's like people every day buy the lottery, right? And it's like I think like an aspiration and a hope, right? And like people know they're probably not going to win the lottery. I guess there's like maybe more regulation and limitations on that. But like, are meme coins that?
It's complicated, right? Yeah, I know. The crowd has some smirks on their faces, a little bit of laughter. If I go buy a lottery ticket, I know full well what I'm purchasing. I think the issue today is that many people buy a token like Libra, and they don't full well know. Some of us do, and it's because we've been around for a while. We've seen the pump and dump phase and many cycles over the years. But for the new user, meme coins as a vehicle for mass adoption, I think, is actually quite misleading. And actually, if you really pull the thread, it's pretty deceptive because
And there's no randomness.
we're not telling these folks that this is actually just a casino. We're not being upfront about it.
So I think part of the crux becomes like we have to provide functionality beyond this casino, right? Otherwise, then how can we expect people to use this technology? So where do you see the industry going in terms of some use case that like applies to like the average person?
I wish you would have told me that question ahead of time so I could come more prepared. I like it because there have been a few airdrop events in the space that I think have been done well. A lot that have been done poorly. We've seen them happen many times. Hyperliquid is a great example. If we look at what Hyperliquid did early on, they found product market fit, they built a great product, they had great users, they developed a strong community of people who believe in what they do before they launched their token. Meme coins are kind of the opposite, right? Like it's sort of lead by token, lead by financial incentives. There's no product market fit, there's no product to back up the token, it's just speculation. And so I think the way that we move forward, the value add that we have is true products that solve real problems for real people, where we can demonstrate crypto makes your life better. Maybe there is financial incentive. I'm not saying remove that altogether. I think that is a vehicle for mass adoption. But if we do it with honesty and with a product that backs the token and there's actually real building happening and real value added, I think that's actually a better mass adoption event.
Yeah, so something I've been percolating as kind of a use case is really like creating things that weren't possible before, right? And one of the use cases that I keep coming back to, and I don't actually know if it's technologically feasible, but I hope that at some point it is like what you mentioned about ownership, but actually ownership about like our data as attributed to our identity, right? Because Google and Facebook invented this data economy. At the risk of dating myself, I was the first group of people that tried Facebook.
Me too.
Back in the day.
Me too.
And Mark Zuckerberg's team showed up on our college campus and said, "Don't worry, we're only ever going to let college kids in, and we'll never sell your data."
Do you remember the revolt when they opened it to high schools?
Yes. No, and the weird when you found like your uncle, watching
Even
things.
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you
even
got a call
worse.
from your
Yeah,
parents
exactly.
being like, "Why were you out so late on this?" And you're like, "Whoa, what just happened?" Right? And but at the time it was like, it used to be like, for us, it was called the Green Book, and it was the photos and the names of everyone in your class, right? And like that got turned into the Facebook, and then you have this whole data economy that has been created by these like giant tech monopolies who have essentially like developed off like profiting of people, right? The idea was like you use the free service and then you become the product. And that happened in like back in the early 2000s, and now we're almost 20 years later, and no one's ever figured out how to like take that back into the people, right? So like no one's figured out how to say, Well, I own my data, and yes, maybe you can sell it to advertisers with my consent. And also, when you make, $40 because I purchased something through this, maybe that should go back into, a pool of the people, or go back into, the overall impressions or visions, or however that goes. And so I think there's like a lot to figure out technically with like how oracles work, how you attribute that data, and how it works through. But I do think that like if we're really thinking beyond the casino, the unlock is like that attribution of data somehow.
Yeah, I agree. And I work in the Oracle space under UMA. We do a lot of work around that. Data is where real value is. Your data, if you don't own your data, if you post images on Instagram, you don't own that data, that's problematic. And if you pull that thread far enough, it becomes very much like you don't even own original thought anymore. And that's troublesome.
We're out of time, but should I?
Yeah.
Can crypto still save the world?
I think crypto can still save the world, and I think that you are all the ones who are going to do this.
Yeah,
so
I
we
agree.
encourage you to think through how to break the tech monopolies, because that's really the unlock. The unlock comes down to like really figuring out how to produce real business models, how to take over real capital, and how to break systems that are, how to break the systems that already exist because they're broken. So we believe in you.
I like to think we do, because there is still hope, and crypto can, I believe, still save the world. So let's do it.